seen him on your television. You've seen him on your screen. You've seen him taking a drink of something secret. He does it all. He's the master of his craft. We are so excited to have Peter Onorati joining us here from the West Coast. However, he was just telling me he was here. You guys know we're here in the New York area. Or for those who are new, we are in the New York area in the United States. I'm Jim Masters, your host. And Peter was just here on the East Coast visiting family and spending some time. He's an epic and prolific award-winning television, film, and stage actor. You've seen him in so many incredible performances on Goodfellas, and of course, This Is Us, and The Rookie, and Mom, and Big Bang Theory. You name it, he has been a part of it. Drama, comedy. He's got a comedic background. He's got a marketing degree and then some. He's an ad guy, and we're so excited to have him back on the show. Matter of fact, he was with us last time with the incomparable actress Mariette Hartley and Jerry Soroka. He was in a really beautiful and just very, very warm and romantic movie about their love story, and it was terrific. And we had Peter on and the whole gang. Peter, welcome back to the Jim Masters Show. It's a pleasure to have you here, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
So you've been here on the East Coast recently, and how was that? You and I were chatting before we went on that you're there in LA doing your things you have for years, but you still have your ties and love of back home, huh?
No, I miss home, and you know, the little town, beautiful little town that I grew up in, Boonton, New Jersey, has this gorgeous river running through it and the falls, and from the top of the hill where I used to live, I always go and I take pictures. You could see the entire New York skyline. It's 25 miles away as the crow flies. So it is that close geographically, but culturally, my hometown is millions of miles away from New York. So yeah, I love it. And we didn't have a lot of great weather, but the great weather that we had was phenomenal. Probably the best days of the year. My brother happens to have a home in Cape May Point. So I get to spend a little time down there at the Jersey Shore where I spent my summers, you know. So it was just a wonderful trip, and I miss it enough that I want to make it part of my sort of yearly itinerary. I'd like to live there for at least a quarter of the year, and then back in LA, and as we talked about, maybe someday in Italy.
That would be nice. That's the trifecta there for you, huh?
For
That would
me, it
be great.
is.
Yeah. So when you go back to the East Coast and to New Jersey, do you stop off at a good old diner? Do you get some pizza? Do you get
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
East
yeah.
Coast stuff?
I actually, there's two places in my hometown where I don't stray from. Because my friends that want to see me and I want to see them, it's just a couple central locations. One is Maradona, and that's where I spend most of my time, restaurant in Boonton. The other one is a historic restaurant and one of the best pizzas I think in the country, and that is the Reservoir Tavern, which is on the border of Parsippany and Boonton. That place is never empty, and is now run by uh, the son or the grandson of the first owner, who was my brother's college roommate. So, you know, I know everybody there. There are pictures up on a wall of me playing Pop Warner football and all kinds of stuff. It's a great home place. And again, Maradona is the other place where I sit down and it's a little more quiet, you know, and there's nobody there, you know, yelling at me about my politics or buying me drinks, you know.
Does that ever happen at the same time?
Yes, yes. It's why it's hard to argue with, you know.
That's what's
You know, some of my old buddies that I grew up with are just way, way, way different than I am. And you know, it's funny because sometimes, you know, their take on it is, well, you went to Hollywood, you're a liberal. I go, you know what? I'm the same guy who was president of the student government my senior year and got a smoking lounge for the students, and I'm a non-smoker. I
Mm,
said I wanted to get the smoking out of the bathrooms for the rest of us non-smokers. And then if somebody gets caught smoking in the bathroom, then there's a right for them to be suspended because now they have a lounge. So I get
right.
this smoking lounge, and oh man, the Board of Education and the parents were all after me. They're screaming and yelling, "You're going to turn my kids into smokers!" I go, "Excuse me, I know your son. He's a smoker already. I'm just getting him out of the bathroom and keeping
Right.
him from being suspended." You know, so my whole philosophy has not changed. You know, I mean, I do for those who don't do what I do. You know, but that's been hard. You know, I have to avoid some places sometimes when I go home, just not to get into the wrong kind of conversation. So I developed this little sort of fail-safe. If it's a really close friend and I know where he's going with his politics, I said, listen, uh, there's no way we're ever going to agree on this. So I tell you what, to preserve our friendship from now on, let's limit our conversations to recipes and sports,
That makes sense.
right?
That's a good
That's
way
it.
to do it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly, right.
yes,
I mean,
yes.
sometimes you have to do that, and I think
Yeah,
that's a cool way to, do it. Keep friends. Nobody
yeah,
agrees on everything, but hey, shouldn't
sure.
affect the friendship. And
Right,
right, that's the way it
right.
is. Were you brought up that way? I mean, early on,
Um,
growing up with the family and the
well,
love
yeah,
of family,
my father was
Peter and
one of our
Rose,
Pop Warner. Yeah, my father was one of our. He was our baseball coach in Little League, and he was our Pop Warner football coach. And Houghton has a street that actually has projects in it, and one of the top floor is for senior citizens. But there was an ethnic difference, and I grew up with like three or four, maybe five or more really good friends from that area. Those guys played football with me on Pop Warner team, and my father was a contractor. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, but he could build things and do things that he wouldn't normally be able to afford. So he built an in-ground pool up on the hill where we lived, and I used to have those guys from the projects all up and to the house and swimming and having fun and whatever. And so my father showed me in his own quiet way that hey, these are your classmates, these are your teammates. There's nothing going on here. You just bring them up to the pool. That's. So it was again an unspoken sort of lesson in equality. I think he never was pompous about anything. So I think that was my earliest exposure. My father was a, a really open guy and a very good storyteller and a joke teller. Um, he would, I'd be driving a dump truck for him when I was working for his paving company, and I'd see him at the gas station in town, and he'd be telling jokes to everybody at the gas station, and rubbing his eyes and laughing. And he was a gregarious guy, and yeah, I think definitely my family influence, not aggressively, but certainly, quietly, um, let me know that, we're kind of we're all from the same place. We're all the same, in one way or another. We're all part of the universe. And even though he didn't say it that way, because he was the guy that didn't graduate high school, he graduated high school in the Marine Corps, and built a beautiful company out of my grandfather's construction company. So yeah, I family and friends and that's the lesson I got. Yeah,
hmm and beautiful shots right here with the family
yeah,
way back, my friend, huh?
yeah, yep. That's in my grandfather's front yard in Denville, New Jersey. Uh,
Mhm.
that's my mom and my pop. Yeah, yep,
Wow. And
yeah.
look at this cute kid here, huh?
You know what I always say about that picture? My ears are the same size now as they were then. Look how big they are.
Which is
When I was in
cool
it,
because they say everything, the ears, the nose, everything's supposed to keep
yeah,
growing. So the fact
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. In eighth grade, the kids started calling me Spock because my ears were so big and pointy.
now, wasn't there something where we were in Catholic school and
Yeah,
there's something about an Irish and Italian joke or something that maybe
yeah.
the nuns might not have
Yeah, I got,
necessarily got?
yeah. I kind of got kicked out of Catholic school. In fifth grade, we had a nun, Sister Margaret Dolores, I think was her name. She was newly transplanted from like Hoboken or one of the cities, and she kind of was treating us kids from the hick town of Booton like we were city kids. And so there was one day, well, it was the day. It was March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. And this Irish nun was having us sing all these these Irish songs. So I raised my hand, and I don't know how I knew it, but I now know that I'm right. Um, I raised my hand, she called me, and I said, "Hey, sister, now that we sang all these Irish songs, how about we sing some Italian songs since St. Patrick was Italian?" Boom. She throws me out of the room, sends me up to the 250-pound principal who smacked me up a flight of steps the year before and told her that I threw my hands up in the air and I was, dancing around saying, "Let's sing some Italian songs." So my mother did the best thing she ever did in all my years of schooling. She called all the goody-goody girls, Judy Catchababe, Dorothy Fagan, Mary Bacchetta, and said, "What happened today?" And they said, "Well, Peter raised his hand and sister called on him." So the next day, my father, mother, and I were in the principal's office, this screaming, yelling fight. And before I knew it, I went down the hill, one block, the public school, and got the shit beat out of me because I was a Catholic school kid.
That's that's what happens. It was a different
When that was the
time, and
start of
just
my yeah, that was the start of my socialization. I mean, I had my first African American friends. I had friends. At that time in my hometown, there was an influx of Southerners from the Carolinas and stuff, because Boonton is or was a very industrial town. There were um, three plants. One made margarine, one made Melmac dinnerware, and one made flavors and fragrances. So there was a lot of factory work, and there wasn't much work in the South at that time. So a lot of people came up from places like Dillon, South Carolina, and all those places, and they were classmates of mine. And there was one in particular who I must have pissed them off. I don't know. When our parents were talking about these people coming up from the South, I didn't realize that it was kind of a slur, but they were going, these rebels come up here and they do this. So I'm thinking it's okay, and I'm calling these guys rebels. And this one guy, Craig, used to take me on the side of Patsy's Delicatessen and beat me up every day after school. And so, um, because I must have said, "Oh, you're a rebel, right?" So one day he's beating me up and I'm down on the ground and he stops. So I'm like, I'm not going to look up because I don't want to get hit in the face. I turn, and now this school only went to sixth grade. We went downtown to another school for seventh and eighth grade. Craig was a year ahead of me. He was in sixth grade. I was in fifth. So I turn and I see a set of sixth grade stiletto heels with black stockings with a run in them going up to a leather jacket. And it's this woman, sixth grade woman. Her name was Liz Chazar. And she had Craig up against the wall. And she said, "Don't you ever touch him again." And he never did.
wow. Liz, did you want to come in now or later? Now,
Come on in, Liz. This is your life.
this is your life. What a story. So,
Oh, yeah.
how did these experiences growing up with the family, with the friends, with school, different things you had to deal with, how did it influence and shape not only who you are, but the choices you made going forward and even the work you do in the arts and entertainment now?
Well, we'll go in reverse. Unknowingly, I never knew I was going to be an actor. It is everything that I do comes from this. Everything. I have a catalog in my mind of the greatest successes and the greatest failures and hurts. And, just from a slight turn of a head when I'm, spilling my guts out to somebody and how much that hurt me, to the greatest successes as well. All that is in my mind. And I just said this at the reunion dinner at Lycoming College where I got my undergraduate degree. I said, I hate to use the phrase, but I am incredibly blessed because I get to use every one of those memories, every piece of that catalog to recreate life on film or on stage. So I bring all these morsels together, and inevitably, whatever that script is that I'm reading, there's something from my past in there. And it's a joy that I get to resurrect it, even if it was a painful experience. It's a joy to recreate, to create a life out of all those experiences, and honestly, I didn't like it when I was going through it. I mean, that was pretty painful. And I was one of the shorter guys in class, and I got pushed around, and what they call a bully now, and but I remember all that. I remember those who didn't bully me. I remember those who did. I remember those who changed, who stopped. Uh, and those are incredible life experiences to um, to have inside you, so that so that if you're working with a character who has a change, here it is. Here's a guy who one day was beating you up, and the next day he's like, "Hey, come on, let's go. I'm gonna get you a sandwich at Patsy's Delicatessen." You know, uh, so yeah, that I mean, that's all of that unknowingly informed who I am now and what I was going to do. And when I raised my kids, I just told a friend of mine. He was here yesterday. He has a 1-year-old, and we were talking about parenting. And I said, somebody gave me one of the greatest gifts when I first had our first son, Sonny. Uh, and I said, if I knew who it was, or if I could remember who it was, and I had the money, I'd buy this person a house. He said to me, "Your job as a good parent is to pass along only 50% of the baggage that you got." Okay, now that's a hard thing to quantify. It's a hard thing to do, but what an incredible fail-safe for me. When I went up the stairs to Sonny's room with my father's rage in me, and my hand hit that doorknob, and I went 50%, 50%. It didn't come out 50%, but it came out different. And so I learned, and I changed that behavior for the better, I think. And my kids all came out pretty good.
That is fantastic. What a great story. That's a terrific way to look at it too, the 50%,
Yeah,
It
yeah,
it changes the game. There's certain things you'll always have that are ancestral and cultural
yeah,
and family history, but the other 50% is what you create and what you do and the relationships
exactly,
that you have, which I think is
exactly.
a perfect way to do it. It's amazing too that your body of work is extraordinary, Peter. You've done everything, truly in terms of all the genres and all the categories. But I would imagine what it must be like going back east and going back to New Jersey and seeing the neighborhood and people maybe that you grew up with
Yeah,
when they know that
yeah,
you had
yeah,
opportunities to be. I mean, some people
yeah,
might not say the things that they said then when they knew that you were in things like Goodfellas. They
yeah,
might want to say it
yeah,
a little differently.
yeah, yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
the rookie and law enforcement roles and all these kinds of things.
Well,
It's
yeah,
really
my
amazing.
uncle was the chief of police in my hometown. When I got SWAT, he was like, "Okay, now we know. Now we know what I said, "Yeah," and that's played lawyers and cops and played a lot of CEOs. Listen, that's one of the blessings. Even though now I wish I had started earlier, but I started late and I had an MBA. I was 12 years in the business world. But the blessing of that was that when I walked into an audition room, I wanted the job as bad as anybody else, but I didn't need it because I loved the career that I came from and could have gone right back. And the other blessing was that I had lived at parody or as the very character that I was going to play for the next 20 years. I didn't have to do any research. I lived at parody and worked at parody with lawyers and CEOs and cops and all these people that I was about to play. So I really didn't have to, like some actors who, kept a job as a waiter until they got their break. They had to study who those people were. I didn't.
You mentioned having the MBA and working in marketing and advertising and
Yeah,
being in that world too and broadcast
yeah.
media and everything else. How did that happen? Were you doing something or were you working on a campaign or something where somebody noticed you and said, "Hey, you should pursue this," or were you quietly pursuing it on the side while you were immersed in that industry, Peter?
So what I was, my girlfriend before my wife, Jeanette, was the art director of a magazine called Working Mother for McCall's. I have it right up here, my card actually. Um, I was at the time I was working for Ford Motor Company in the export division in Newark, New Jersey. And so I would meet her in the city on one night a week or something, and we would go to the Improv. And in those days, Jerry Seinfeld was headlining, and Mark Weiner, and all these guys, Ron Darien and Joe Piscopo, and so we'd ride home on the bus from New Jersey, and I'd say, I think I could do that. She got so sick and tired of hearing me say that. She bought me a one night class in comedy in the city, and a thing called the Network for Learning, which is like Learning Annex. The updated is the Learning Annex. So I took this thing and I met this group of people um, who were doing improvisational comedy. They said to me, "Oh, you should be doing this." I said, "No, no, I'm not an actor." So I went back to Ford and I finished my MBA at Ford, and then Ford laid me off. Well, I had done my master's thesis on my girlfriend's magazine for McCall's, this working mother. And so I had a 200-page research document and a 200-page annual marketing plan for Working Mother magazine. So I presented it to Working Mother, uh, and they created a job for me. I was the director of marketing and research for McCall's Working Mother magazine and 3 other publications for McCall's. So I started working in the city, living in New Jersey, and these people kept hitting me up. And so I started doing improvisation with them as a hobby on the side. Um, Within a couple of years, um, my wife had lost her improv group. They broke up. She came into our improv group. And then my old girlfriend, Nina, I think, called Jeanette, my wife, and said, "Listen, I'm done with him." She dumped me. So Jeanette and I started dating, and I was still at McCall's. One year, the last year, of course, I had some of my research published in Advertising Age. And I started getting calls from all these big firms, P&G and Bronfman and everybody, about stealing me away. And I went into my boss's office and I said, I'd like to stay here, but these guys are offering me a lot of money. Well, we got into an argument about that. And Jeanette said, "I think you could be an actor." So I walked into my boss's office and I said, "Look, my work is too good. You can't fire me. Make it so I can collect unemployment and I'll leave." She said, "Deal." And I walked out on a Friday and I left them with a 200-page research document. All they had to do was update it, and as the new info came out. And on Monday, I enrolled in a crash course in commercials. And within 2 weeks, I was on hold for a national beer commercial. I didn't get it, but I didn't have my SAG card or anything like that. But I thought, well, this might be, a way to go for a while. See what happens. And within 2 years, I was making more as an actor doing commercials than I was as a Park Avenue executive for McCall's magazines.
Is that
Uh,
amazing? And so
yeah,
did the bug bite you right away? Did you like it? Did you take to it easy?
loved it. It was so much fun, and like I said before, I got to use half of the time, especially when I was doing improv. I was doing characters from my past, which I can't do anymore. I just did a couple of shows at the Groundlings. You know how the history of the Groundlings. The whole first SNL cast. A lot of them came out of there, and so on. Um, I was doing a workshop with some advanced Groundlings, and they asked me to do the show. Well, I was stumped because when I first started doing improv, the way I did it that was comfortable was that I did characters from my past. I did my grandfather, Italian grandfather. I did the African American kids that I grew up with. I did the Polish kids that I grew up with, and but you can't do that now, and so it was incredibly fun and lucrative. I thought, holy cow, you make money doing this, and this much money. And then I got Kate and Allie, and Jeanette and I got married, and we moved out to LA. And I was going back and forth to do the last couple episodes. It was the last season of Kate and Allie, and Jeanette was pregnant with Sonny. And there's a great story about the last episode of Kate and Allie. We were filming at the Ed Sullivan Theater, and we filmed on a Thursday night in front of a live audience. Friday, I had a 12:30 flight from JFK back to LA since we'd already moved for my son's birth. He was due on Monday. I get a call from my agents saying, We have a callback for Martin Scorsese for Goodfellas at Rockefeller Center at 12:30. I said, I have a 2:30 flight, and I got a 12:30 callback for Scorsese, right? So I said, I called Jeanette, and I said, yeah, I hope the baby's late because I'm going to be. And so I went, and the Scorsese audition is a good story. I'll do that too, and then I'll shut up. You can ask some more questions. But in that time, for the small roles that I got, Scorsese was giving everybody the same sides, the same scene to read. And for these small roles, he was hiring real mob guys or cops that chased real mob guys. So we all had the same scene to read. And I walk into the outer room, and there are these guys with silver sweatsuits and patent leather sneakers and smoking cigars. And they look at me and they go, hey, what are you reading for? I go, well, I got the signs for Sonny Bamboo. He goes, you know him? I go, no, I don't know him. He goes, I know him. You don't look nothing like him. I said, well, that's what they gave me. He goes, God bless you, kid. So then I go into the audition, the callback for Scorsese. And, I was still I was only in the business 3 years, maybe. And I was still used from my marketing background to finding some way to make the meeting mine, right? So I figured, how am I going to make the meeting mine? This is Martin Scorsese. How am I going to make this meeting mine? Well, it dawned on me that my grandfather's name is Donato Scorsese, exact same spelling without the S. So I made up a story. Before we read, I said to Scorsese, before we read, I got to ask you if we're related, because I said to my grandfather, Donato Scorsese, that I was going to read for the great director, Martin Scorsese. And my grandfather says, wow, I think we have a cousin at one time. We should take the S out of the name. Scorsese goes, really? Really? Because we can't find our relatives. And I went, oh, shit. I'm in it. I just made the whole thing up. I'm dead, right? So I go, well, where are you from? He goes, well, we're from Sicily. I go, no freaking way. We're not Sicilians. He goes, what are you? I go, we're Napolitans. He goes, you guys drink too early in the morning. You want to do this? I go, yeah, let's do it. And I read the scene, and I got a little role.
How cool is that? And what a way to get it too.
I don't
Just
know if it helped, but it certainly made me more comfortable.
I was going to say, just a little twist to the name. That is a terrific story. And what
Yeah,
a segue, just showing, your capability and your prowess and your ability to take on roles, to go from Kate and Allie, of course,
yeah.
working with those two superstars, and
Oh,
then bringing in Goodfellas. I mean, what
yeah,
a terrific, just shows
yeah,
your range too. And look at that shot there.
yeah, yeah. No, that was late nights in Park Slope, Brooklyn, man. It was pretty tough.
What was that like, being a part of Goodfellas? I mean, that's like a cult classic on so many
I know,
levels.
I
People
know. It's
still,
it's
they
amazing.
ref they refer to it
I didn't know.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. I just wanted to work for Scorsese, and I didn't know I'd be working with De Niro and Ray, and I mean, De Niro gets in a car. It's 2 o'clock in the morning in Park Slope, and he goes, "How you doing? I'm Bobby De Niro." I go, "Yeah, I know." He goes like this, right? So I developed the De Niro face. My kid was doing. He was 1 year old. I go, "Do De Niro." He goes like this. So it was, uh, an amazing time, and De Niro would get out of the car and he'd go over to Scorsese after every shot, and they'd be talking. They go, and they come back with something different to do. Uh, And but it was. I mean, I knew it was a big deal just because of who was doing it. I didn't know the film was going to be as iconic as it was, but I have a really fantastic coda for you. Um, a couple of years ago, my buddy Jerry Gelb, who's my IT guy, uh, we went down to Ventura Boulevard to get some pictures made because I had some autograph requests. And the guy looks at me and goes, yeah. And Jerry goes, yeah, he was in Goodfellas. He was in this and that. So the guy goes, geez, do you know that Henry Hill, before he died, painted all these scenes from Goodfellas? I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." So I go down to pick up the pictures when they're done, and he has a photo of Henry Hill's painting of my scene where they're trying to throw me to the lions. And I went, that's hilarious. First of all, it looks like a third grader painted it, but it's Henry Hill, right? So I went online, I found the original, and I have it here in my office. The original Henry Hill painting of that scene is still is right here in my office. So it was pretty fun to after all those years.
How cool and how special is that,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yep.
Something else, I mean, as I was saying, your body of work is so expansive from film and television. I mean, multiple movies and stage performances, many commercials. Cop Rock was something else that has also got this cult following as well. What was it like being a part of that, and how that happened for you too, Peter?
So my agent in New York moved back out here. She was from LA. And while I was in New York, I had sung at a couple of friends' weddings. So I had just gotten done with my second big movie, which is a movie called Firebirds with Tommy Lee Jones, Nick Cage, Sean Young, and then me and Scott Williamson were the two next level, and
Yeah,
Brian
PJ
Brian
Hartman's
Kessler.
watching, and PJ says he was on Firebirds as
Yeah,
Rice. Yeah.
yeah, and so um, I came back from filming Firebirds, and my then agent, now manager, because she's been in my life since the beginning. She is my business wife. Her name is Kay Lieberman, and her partner Lenore Zerman. Um, she called. She said, "You sing, right?" I go, "No, I don't have a trained voice. I don't sing." She goes, "You sing, right?" I go, "No, no. I sang at a friend's wedding." She goes, "You sing." I went, "Okay, I sing, right?" So she sends me in for Cop Rock, and um, it was really, it was Bochco, man. I would have done anything to work for Bochco at the time, and so I did it a couple auditions, and I um I ended up having to do a couple callbacks for the singing, right? With Mike Post and Randy Newman. Randy Newman did all the music of the pilot. I would say, and at the time, I was still new out here in LA, and in those days, everybody wanted to get out of TV and wanted to do features because they weren't hiring uh, TV people for features. And it wasn't like now where Kevin Costner does Yellowstone or whatever the hell he's doing, and everybody comes back down and does stuff. And so Vincent LaRusso was supposed to be um, 4 episodes, sings a love song to his gun, and blows his head off. And I went, that's the way to go out of television if you want to be in features, right? So it wasn't a regular character. And after the pilot was done, the character tested so well that ABC told Bochco, we got to make this guy a regular. Well, it turns out that because of the cancellation and stuff, almost all the episodes, the A story was about my character and having killed a cop killer and going to court and being prosecuted, and then going to jail and then getting out of jail and coming back to the force. In about 10 or 12 episodes that we did, that was pretty much the A story the whole time. I have always wanted to get an Emmy so that I could just stand up and go, thank you very much. Cop Rock was the best thing that I ever did. Good night. It Nobody gets to do that. My wife has an incredible voice. She was an actress when we met. She became a writer producer on a lot of shows. Her first job here in LA, um, she was on the original writing staff of In Living Color, and she
Oh,
was
yeah.
nominated for an Emmy. You know, so she started in the writing producing vein, but she has an incredible voice, and I'm the idiot who gets to sing on TV. Uh, but it was wonderful. It created my relationship with Stephen, and then I went right on to Civil Wars from that with Mariel Hemingway, which was a really cool, really good show, and
Mm.
a really great step for me to go from a guy like LaRusso, who's this sort of bad cop, to this lawyer, and I loved the law. I loved, I had 2 semesters undergraduate and I had 2 semesters in graduate school. I loved the law. I was just not conscientious enough to go to law school. One of my best friends, his name is Tom Vinaski. We were co-captains of the football team at Lycoming College for a couple of weeks. And Tom ended up a federal appeals court judge appointed by Obama, you know. So he had, the stick-to-itiveness to do, what was necessary.
Is he
And
still that now? That's what he's
no,
doing.
he's retired. He retired,
Oh,
and I actually was supposed to see him this last month because we had this reunion, but he had a death in the family, so he couldn't
mm,
come. So I missed him. But
yeah.
I love the law, but I wasn't as conscientious as somebody like Tommy.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it's so interesting. It's so interesting to understand the concept of law. The fact that you need to write in words, you need to legislate ethics or philosophy, things that are so indescribable most times have to be written in words that we all can understand and abide by, It's very hard, which is a great exercise though in humanity. It's a wonderful way to look at things.
It really is. Did you enjoy being with the team on Civil Wars? That is.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. Alan Rosenberg was from Patterson, New Jersey. We
Ah,
we could
right.
finish. We finished each other's jokes, and so was David Marciano. He was from New Jersey too. Um, Debbie was from New York City, and in fact, I just reached out to Debbie on Instagram today because I saw the documentary on Pee Wee Herman. I don't know if you've seen it. It was a wonderful documentary, and I
Oh,
didn't know
yeah.
that Debbie was very close with him. So Debbie now lives in Milano. She married a restaurateur or something. Um, so she lives in Italy. She's doing great. And I have, moderate contact with Marielle, not too much. She's real happy now. So yeah, no, I loved that show. It, I got to play one of the people that I wanted to be in real life, and that was cool.
Yeah, people still talk about it and still reference it today as well. Again,
Yeah.
because your body of work has really stood the test of time, Peter. You've inspired us and got us to think and laugh in so many different ways and so many different uh, forms and genres, which is truly amazing. Something else too. I think it was Victoria Principal. You did River of Rage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was great fun. That was terrific. I remember grabbing her. He said, "That's that scene right there." I grabbed her and actually lifted her up, and I put her down after the scene. She goes, "You're an animal." I go, "Yes, remember that. Remember that I am an animal." But she was very sweet. She had a helicopter in her deal, so we were staying. I think it was Miami, Arizona. We were filming on the Snake River or Salt River, something like that. And the whole crew had to get into vans, and they had like a 3 hour ride to get from where we in the small motel we were to the set on the river. Uh, but um, Victoria said, "Hey, do you want to ride in the helicopter with me?" I went, "Yeah." So we helicoptered in and out with the director. And I'll tell you something was really cool. Helicopter rides out of those canyons at sunset, man, was just quite amazing. And she was very sweet, and we got along great. You know.
You know, comedy too. As I mentioned, comedy is another area that you delved into pretty early. Look at this photo we dug up.
The Kippermans,
Yes, tell us about
Saul,
this.
Saul and Herschel Kipperman. That's my friend Gary Richman. Gary was in the improv group, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so while I was still at McCall's, our group won the Improv Olympics in New York City, and so we were going to Second City to compete there. And so since there was a McCall's office in Chicago, I said to my bosses, I said, listen, I haven't met the Chicago office. I need to meet the Chicago office. You guys pay for my trip so that the group didn't have to pay for my trip. So we get out there and we're going on stage at Second City doing all these improv exercises as a competition. And Gary, who was Jewish from Queens, had always done this great old Jewish character when he'd come in improv. It was hilarious. It was wonderful. So we're standing backstage ready to go into a doctor's office sketch. And I said, hey, hook arms with me. So we hooked arms and we walked in and we sat down across all four legs and started going, what the hell is your problem? You're here, you're supposed to be, and the Kippermans were created. So we came back to New York, and one of the women in the improv group, the leader of the improv group at the time was Hal Peller. And he said, you got to do something with this character. So one of the women, I think it was Hal's wife, Janet, who sewed that I Heart New York thing. And Gary played the guitar. I didn't. So he did the chords, I did the strumming, and we created this character. And we did the improv once or twice, but we were really mostly at a place called Comedy U downtown. And I'll tell you what, who headlined some of the shows that we did. Ellen DeGeneres, what's her name from oh my gosh, from The View.
Whoopi Goldberg,
No, not Whoopi. Whoopi was already
Sherry
pretty
Shepherd,
successful. No, she left the show. She lives on Long Island. Oh my God, I can't believe I forget her. But
Joy
anyway,
Behar,
Joy. Yeah,
Joy
Joy.
Behar. Yeah.
Yeah, Joy was headlining. Ellen DeGeneres was headlining. This little place called Comedy U on University, and then it moved down to Grand Street. So we did that, and we did our little. I wrote some, some I, what do you call them? I'm losing my mind now. Some parodies. I wrote some parodies. We had one that was about our dog. I had taped together, those invisible dog leashes. So,
Yes.
so I taped one together. It looked like one leash with two heads. And we said to the audience, have you seen our dog? His name is Spots. He's a very nice dog, but he ran away. So we don't know what to do. But if you see him, maybe. So Gary would say, hey, why don't we do the song? Right. So again, we're playing the guitar intro, and the song was On the Rug Again. That stupid Spots made on the rug
Look
again.
again.
That kind of stuff. And we did well. We did really
Were
well.
there plans to take it further?
Not really. I mean, we would have done whatever, if anybody wanted to, but no, we didn't really have any. That was the great thing about this improv group. Gary, Herschel Kipperman, he ran his father's ball bearing distributorship in Queens, is now a realtor. Uh, Hal was a bartender, stand-up comic that had come from Atlanta. Um, this guy, Peter Epple, that was in the group, was Harvard PhD in economics, worked for Prudential Base. Another woman was Fortune Magazine. Joan Hoffman was Fortune Magazine art director for some things. Hal's wife, Janet, worked at the Rockefeller Foundation. Nobody had designs on being an actor. And that's what made us all work together so well, and listen to each other, because that's the one thing that improvisation teaches you is to listen. Um, so it was great. It was I'll use the word again. It was a blessing to have started out with these kind of people. Nobody had an agenda. We were really there for each other and to perform on stage and to make the group better.
Which is key. That's great. Did you guys stay in touch? People stay in
Yeah,
touch
yeah. Oh yeah, I don't go back to New York without seeing Gary and
without
Hal
getting
and
together again?
yeah. Last
That's
time
great.
this last time I didn't get to see them. They had other
Yeah.
things going on, but absolutely every time, you know.
Here's another cool photo we dug up.
That's the group. That's the original group without my wife. Now, the guy with the glasses on the bottom left is Peter Eppel. He was the Harvard PhD in economics. The woman all the way to the right is Janet. She was at the Rockefeller Foundation. She was married to Hal all the way on the left above with the beard. And Joan Hoffman in front was the art director. And then the guy with the beard and next to Janet on the right is Michael Catito. Michael was in cancer research at Sloan Kettering, and Michael was one of the first casualties of AIDS in New York. Uh,
Wow. Hmm.
and then there's me to Mook standing up behind. But yeah, that's the original group. Yeah,
That's
and then my
cool.
wife Jeanette came in and directed and performed as well. Yeah.
I just want to remind folks, and we'll talk about a couple of the the most notable because there are so many, but just taking a look at the amount of things that you've been a part of course, we mentioned SWAT, The
Yeah,
Last Champion. Just you
yeah,
can run through, you can go to his website too, Station 19,
yeah,
and Being the Ricardos also. Um, Tell us
yeah.
about that. They just had that wonderful piece. If anybody didn't see it, Lucy Arnaz is a wonderful dear friend of our show and of mine.
Oh, okay.
We've
Yeah,
known each other for a long time, and she's a
yeah,
beautiful person inside and out. And they just did that piece on CBS Sunday Morning about Desi Arnaz and the contributions he made to television
yeah,
and the three
yeah,
camera style and I Love
yeah,
Lucy.
yeah, yeah.
What
Changed
was it
the
like
tone.
being
Yeah.
a part of that, being a Ricardos?
That was such a rush job. I think somebody must have bailed out because they called me and they go, "Hey, that thing you auditioned for, being the Ricardos, uh, they want you." And I went, "Really?" And this was during COVID protocols. So I had never, for such a small role, I had never had so much attention. They brought me in 3 days before. They put a wig on me. They cut the wig down. I grew my pencil mustache to help out and do all this stuff. The best thing that happened, the best thing that happened about on that set was that when I came on to do the rehearsal. So this is this famous scene where she ends up stomping grapes for wine, but this is a director who's my line was your wife she is beautiful. I have a part in my film for a beautiful redhead, Italian redhead who como se dice, stomps on grapes. So I come in and I do the rehearsal and I do it like that. And they go cut on rehearsal and I start to walk away. And Javier Bardem goes, uh, "Where are you from?" I go, "I'm from New Jersey." He goes, "No, don't tell me that." He says, "I thought you were from Italy." What? I said, "No, man, I'm from New Jersey. That's just my grandfather talking through me, you know," which was great. So I had him pulled.
Well, just 1 degree from Italy, just New
Exactly,
Jersey. New
exactly,
Jersey is just 1
exactly.
degree, just the big
Yeah.
pond in between, basically. That's about it,
But
right?
that's the thing, and my roots, like you said, my roots are in comedy, improv. I had my own
Right.
sitcom. I had Joe's Life, which my friend Jerry put up on my website with Mary Page Keller played my wife, Mimi Kennedy played my sister-in-law, George DiCenzo played my brother, and Danny Masterson was on. He played my
Oh,
nephew.
yes, from the '70s show.
Yep, yep,
Yep.
yep. He did the '70s show after Joe's Life. Yep, yep,
You mentioned, yeah, Mary, she was
yeah.
also on Another World, the soap opera, I believe, at
Yeah,
one
well, Mary
time.
Page and her husband,
Yeah.
she's married to Thomas Ian Griffith. They were
Oh,
both
yes. Okay, yeah.
soap actors, and Thomas was in like Karate Kid 3 or something like that. Thomas had a great career, but they're both writing now. They're writing I, I don't, it might be Virgin River that a friend of mine is doing, but they're writing a show. They're both very talented, incredibly talented people. Uh, I didn't recognize Thomas. I saw him on the picket line, and he had a beard and all this stuff and a hat on. He goes, "Peter," and he goes, "It's Thomas." I go, "Don't be mad at me. You got a beard, you got a Fu Manchu, you got a hat on. But a very, very talented couple, and yeah. And Mary Page was actually a recast. The first woman that they cast, they recasted it. I was doing a movie in Florida with Melissa Gilbert, and they called me back to read Mary Page. And Mary Page had just done Look Who's Talking with George Clooney, and that got canned. That was a short run deal. Um, so yeah, that's the sort of the pedigree of that situation.
And canned is basically an in-house term for get out of here.
Yeah, yeah,
Take your
yeah,
box. You got 10 minutes. Don't say
yeah,
anything to anybody
yeah.
and don't touch the computers.
Yeah, don't take the wardrobe.
Don't take the wardrobe as well. Uh, the Rookie, another great one to be a part of as well, Peter.
Yeah, yeah, that
Uh,
was great. Well,
yeah.
Nathan Fillion is probably, how I think you're familiar with, but your audience might not be. There's a call sheet. The call sheet has numbers on it. The lead character is number one, and down the line, and so Nathan Fillion is number one, and Nathan is probably the best number one in Hollywood that I've ever met. He When I did the Rookie, that was still COVID protocols as well. And we're used to be hair and makeup was in one trailer. Now it's hair in one trailer and makeup in another. So I was on one end, he was on the other end. We had masks on while they're working on our hair. And he comes down, and I had done Castle. He said, "Do you remember me? Do you remember me?" I said, "Of course I remember you. You were the only people that loved Cop Rock." He actually brought up on his phone one of my numbers from Cop Rock, because I think Nathan is a trained singer. He's got a pretty good voice. So I said, "Of course I remember you, you know." So we kind of shook hands, and then, wiped our hands off and went back. And I went to makeup for 20 minutes. And then after, I went to my trailer, and he had sent a Bluetooth speaker as a gift and a beautiful note about how wonderful it is to work with such talented people. He must be doing something right if he gets to do it twice. And I thought, man. So I brought that letter home, and I showed it to my kids. My son is a voice actor. He's doing pretty good. And his wife from South Africa is an actress. And I said, "You see this? When you're number one on the call sheet, this is how you act, you know?"
That is incredible, and the fact that he's a voice actor, that is a
Yeah.
great area to be in. You've
Yeah.
toyed in that world too, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
got very lucky. I did a lot of well, a lot of some animation, and yeah, yeah,
M
did
Marvel
some.
Comics and things like that?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I did. I played Joe Chill, the very person who creates Batman by killing his parents, and in the flashback. Played Warhawk. I played Robot Man, Teen Titans, a bunch of that stuff. It was great.
Do you like doing that, and would more be in the offing for you if you wanted it?
I'd love to do it. I haven't gotten any in a long time, but I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to do it. I'm good friends with Lorraine Newman,
Oh,
and because
sure, yeah.
she was in this master's improv workshop with me and my wife Jeanette for years now, and she makes her living doing it. She's like phenomenal. She makes her living basically doing that, and a great one too. But she's great. I couldn't believe I got to do in this workshop. I got to work with Lorraine Newman. I'm like, man, when I was at McCall's and doing improv in all the shitholes in New York, you were at Elaine's with the rest of the crew, and I never thought this would happen.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That is amazing. And Jane Curtin with Kate and Allie, so, you know
yeah. Jane was great too, and but Susan was the one who really took me under her wing. When I got there was it was the last season, and it was another great lesson in how things work in Hollywood or in the business, because Susan and Jane were best friends when the show started out. And in the end, there were kind of separate camps. They weren't mad at each other, they didn't fight, but there were kind of separate camps. And I ended up in Susan's camp because my character, Lou Corello, was in love with her, always running around and, "Hey, Legs, how you doing? What do you want to do? You want to do something?" And so I just happened to mention to Susan one time, I said, "Wouldn't it be great if this character did finally get a date with Kate, and you find out he's just a blowhard, that when he's around women, he's intimidated, he's like, demure, well, we came back from hiatus, and there was an episode written where I take her out to an Italian wedding, in a tuxedo, and I buy her, and we have a kiss and all this stuff. And she meets my parents, my Italian mother. It was great. And Susan was great. She took me up to her dressing room one time. She said, "Hey, I'm going to watch Wise Guy. You want to come up?" Remember, Wise Guy was a great show, right? So I come up, and I'm sitting there watching Wise Guy. Uh, and I think the show's over, and as I get up, she goes, "You know, you just sat for a half an hour in the Beatles dressing room." Because we were at the Ed Sullivan Theater, right? And Jane had Elvis's. I'm like, holy shit.
How cool, huh? Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
It's amazing when you think about sometimes some of the places you end up and the people
yeah,
you meet, people you work
yep,
with, and just, um,
yep.
there are so many things, as I mentioned, as we were just scrolling through the body of work, Peter. Um, People will be like, "Oh, that's right. He was in that, and he was in that. He's on that. He's a." Uh,
Yeah,
of course, This Is Us, which
yeah,
really was so well received, the ratings through the roof.
yeah,
People
yep,
even still missing that show today. How
yeah.
did how did that come about for you as well? Because again, that was another one that just and you were, of course, terrific in it, and
Well,
an
that
incredible,
character was, yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah,
character I don't think was supposed to do as much as it ended up doing in the end,
right,
but the idea that it informed everything that Jack was,
right.
made it important. When I auditioned for it, Tim Busfield was directing, and I knew Tim briefly, and he was now married to Melissa Gilbert, who was my best friend.
Yeah.
We when we did since we did the movie together, we were best friends the last 30 years, whatever it was. Um, so I got the job, and Ken Olin is an executive producer, and Ken is a former Botchko boy.
And this is the
So,
whole team from 30 something,
well, yeah, I
right?
mean, Ken hired Tim to do a directing job because Ken was an executive producer. Um, but Ken was the only one that was around all the time because he was executive producer. Um, and I got the chance to say something to Ken. Here's another story you might like. After I did the first scene, um, Ken had me come back and reshoot it because he Tim didn't get the close enough shots because you were gonna the first abusive scene was filmed far away, but they weren't doing all the makeup and pulling me back and doing all that stuff at that time. So Tim stayed back because, but then Ken said, "No, you're going to see him when Milo comes to me for the check. You're going to see him, so you gotta be able to see him better in the first scene." So we refilmed that scene, and I was able to say to Ken, you did something for me that if I ever had the chance, I swore I would do for anybody else in this town, in this business." He goes, "Uh-oh, what'd I do?" I go, "Well," I said, "I think it was 1990 that maybe it was yeah, it was 1990, because Cop Rock hadn't come out yet. And my wife and her partner, Mimi Friedman, were nominated for the the Emmy, for writing in living color. It was the first season. So we went to the Emmys, and 30 something kicked ass. They won everything that year. So we're sitting down in the dinner after, and the doors open up, and the 30 something cast starts to walk in, and everybody starts to stand up. And just as I'm getting up, Ken comes over, puts his arms on my shoulder, and pushes me down the seat and puts his arm around my neck and goes, "I saw your work in Cop Rock. That was phenomenal." It hadn't been out yet, but see, Bochco used to screen all his pilots for the guys that he liked that had worked for him. So he had seen it already. And I said, "Ken, I can't tell you that in your greatest moment, you paying attention to me like that, what it did for me and what it told me about how there are some people in this business who give a shit, and not everybody is a brand. You know what I mean?" Uh, he said, "I did that." I go, "Yeah, I know you don't remember it, but I sure do."
Holy cow, really? What a story.
Yeah, yeah,
It really is,
yeah,
these relationships and these people and people remembering one another and just
yeah,
so, This Is Us again, really,
yeah,
Justin Hartley, I mean, everybody that was
yeah,
involved in that one,
yeah.
some really
Well,
powerful people, including yourself. A
well,
unique
Milo and I,
series, really
yeah.
unique,
Well, the thing that was great about it
and
is
your
that,
character too.
thank you. That character that was a blessing. I had SWAT at the same time, and SWAT didn't let me do the second season because the first season of SWAT, they should have let me, but they didn't. And then I came back anyway. But the beauty of This Is Us was that it showed you that everybody has these things that happen to them in their life. Some people die with them. Some people overcome them and use them to be better. And that's why I believe everybody watched that damn show and cried at the end, because there was something in there that happened to them that they were either struggling with still or had gotten over and had carried on. You know, it was just a brilliant show.
Absolutely. I second that. But again, you've had this opportunity to be a part of so many things in our lives. Big Bang Theory,
Yeah, that was hilarious.
uh,
That was
uh,
fun.
Station 19, of course, on
Yeah,
ABC. That's a
yeah,
great one too, huh?
yeah. That was great. That was great. And w- um, working with the guy that's right next to me on my right, on my left, but right
Yeah.
in the picture.
Hmm.
He had his that sitcom, that successful sitcom for a while. Uh,
That's
oh
a
geez,
great
I can't
group
believe.
there.
Oh, and he
Yeah.
was in. He was in uh, the Bruce Willis movie. He was in the first Bruce Willis movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a good, that was a great show. It really was. And
It's a great
Mom,
show.
you're on Mom also.
Yes, and that was the first time back on stage with Mimi Kennedy, who had played my sister-in-law in Joe's Life. It was great, you know, to come in and do that. And it was a lot of fun. It was a sweet character too. It was, it was nice. I just had a great time, you know. I
Y-
have been very lucky.
You
I
have.
did another
Yeah.
interview just the other day, and they said, "Well, you've had a successful acting career." I go, "Yeah, you know what a
Absolutely.
successful acting career is? You keep your house and you put your kids through college." You know?
That's absolutely true. There you were in Blue
Yeah,
Bloods, of course.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned SWAT, which a great experience, right? Being a part of SWAT.
Great, just
Yeah.
great. In fact, I auditioned for the part of Buck, who goes out after the first episode. And I was in New York visiting my family and my cousin actually in New York City. And they called me and they said, they want you to audition for Mumford. I said, I'm on 124th Street. I can't put an audition down now. You know, they said, okay, stay right there. And they called me back. They said, okay, they're going to use your tapes for Mumford to um, against the auditions of the other guys. And they gave me Mumford, and it was great. And it was a great character that should have lasted longer. I just had this weekend our technical guy, uh, Odie Gallup is his name. He was a real SWAT guy. He was on set the whole time. He trained us and everything. So Odie and I became very good friends. And Odie said that Mumford leaving was, and he wasn't even talking, he's not an actor, so he wasn't talking, art wise or anything else. He said, it was a shame because the dynamic between Hondo and Mumford was a dynamic that was gone after Mumford left, because Hondo had to take orders from Hicks. He had to, from everybody above him. But Mumford had the gravitas and the position to challenge him all the time and to give him shit. Uh, but that just went away because it really became more about the action. They blew up something big every episode, and so they didn't want to write for Mumford. But the really Odie said to me, "No, man, it would have been so much fun if you had stuck on because you're always giving him like Alina Esco is a good friend of mine. She is on Shamar's team. He said you would have been giving him so much crap about having a girl on his team. It would be, and then they did kind of allude to it, and then they gave Lena to me for a day, and it was wonderful because I had this great change of character that had worked with Lena and seeing how adept she was, and how smart she was, and everything else. So it was great for my character too. But being old school, you got this Hondo guy who's, kind of bending the rules a little bit. You got this guy Mumford who's like, no, 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 no. You can bend the rules sometimes, you can't bend the rules then. And then, Hondo says, what do you mean? When can I, when can't I? So you got this great dynamic that was lost, once Mumford was gone.
Exactly right. It was kind of like Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah. That was tough. That was tough.
Was that a
That
tough
was
one?
my
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, just because of the nude scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
Yeah.
on the floor and everybody thinks it's great fun and it's easy. It's not easy doing nude scenes, man. And especially ones where you're hardcore boning on the floor, like in this thing. And we were down on that floor
The floor
for like
cold.
3 hours, and I'm like, and I said to the director, I'm like, come here, you got this, right? He goes, no, I just want to do it. I go, no, 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 no. you got this. I've been really good for 3 hours. I said, set is starting to smell like sex. You gotta help me, man. You gotta get me out of here, you know? Uh, so he did. He goes, oh, okay, okay. You know? Um,
Open a few
and he,
windows and
yeah, exactly.
get the
And
fans going.
that episode was so good that the director, Bill, um, I'll figure it out. Bill got uh, um, a movie. He got House on Haunted Hill
Oh, yeah,
from that
right.
episode because that was all the big guys, Zemeckis and everybody were part of that Tales from the Crypt iteration. You know,
It's incredible.
yeah,
Another one too, Shelter. Yeah.
that's one of my favorite projects. That's a
Yes.
project. Somebody
Great.
asked me the other day. They said, "What was your favorite thing?" And I said,
Yeah.
I have a couple favorites. I said, but this role was something that people at my level don't get to do. You have to be Dustin Hoffman to play an accent or a melody. I got to speak in Greek. I got to do a Greek accent. And Costas Mandylor played my brother, and we're still friends. He lives in Portugal now. Don Allen Nelson, who wrote it and produced it, uh, lives in Canada now, but he was just staying in my guest house. He came down. Still has a house here. Uh, that was a wonderful experience, really wonderful experience that most people at my level didn't get to have. You know,
When you have an opportunity to be a part of things like that and still talk
yeah,
about it fondly in the way that you do,
yeah,
that's what it's all about. I
yeah,
mentioned too a little bit about the athleticism too, playing baseball, but also you signed a free agent agreement with the World Football League,
yeah,
Philadelphia. Tell us about
yeah.
that.
Philadelphia Bell.
Was
Well,
sport
I think
something that
I
was
told you my friend Tommy Vanaski, the judge. He and I both signed a free agent agreement and had a tryout agreement. In my position, they had 35 guys. They cut to three, and I made that. And then I made it to the last cut, and they cut me. And I mean, I went to college. I went to a small college in Pennsylvania because I wanted to play football. I wanted to make a splash because I wanted to play pro football. And so I was kind of lost after that, but it was great. And
so you made the cut and got cut?
I made the cut, the first cut down to like three from 35 guys, and then I guess they had enough guys coming back that they cut even further, and so I was out. And by that time, the NFL camps were all closed down. So this was the World Football League at the time. And here's a side story. I was going to get to play football against my hero. My high school, um, Boonton High School, uh, had a very, very famous player come from there. He went to Wyoming. He was most valuable player in the Sun Bowl, and then he signed with the Miami Dolphins. And his name is Jim Kick. Kick and Zonka and Warfield, that famous
Oh,
backfield, that
yeah,
undefeated
right,
season. Jimmy
right.
Kick went to my high school, so
Uh,
I hoped to follow in Jimmy's footsteps and went as far as I could. And then I started playing semi-pro football in the New York leagues. What a mess that was! You'd be having a good game. Team has no insurance, and you're at the bottom of a pile, and somebody grabs your ankle and starts twisting it to get you out of the game. I went, yeah, this is not right. I'm gonna have to forget this.
Hey, gang, I want to let you know too that he was in an ABC afternoon special, of course, Firehouse. Also,
Yeah,
Another World, Scrooged, The Green Flash, Kate and Allie, as we mentioned, Quantum
yeah,
Leap, Mortal
yeah,
Sins, and Goodfellas, as we mentioned, Postcards from the Edge, Civil Wars,
yeah,
Cop Rock, with Hostile Intent. Also, Joe's Life, Good Advice, Camp
yeah,
Nowhere. See what I mean? He's been doing this a long time. Under
yeah,
Suspicion. Also, Not Like Us and Donor
yeah,
Unknown and Kevin's Kitchen and Dead Ahead, Murder One, The Outer Limits as well. Murder One, he was in 6 episodes of that as well.
yeah,
And Joe's
yeah,
Life was 11.
yeah,
And it's just this, we're talking about just, this is like the 1990s. I mean, this has been
yeah,
Temporarily
yeah,
Yours, NYPD Blue, Rocket
yeah,
Man, Michael Hayes, Shelter, which you just talked about. That was in
yeah,
98.
yeah.
True Friends, Nash Bridges. That was a great series as
That
well.
was great. Yeah, yeah,
Lured Innocence and Lands of Love 3 and Just Looking, The Art of Murder. It's unreal. Fallen Archers, Touched by an Angel back in
yeah,
2000. The
Yeah.
Pretender in 2000, Dancing in September, The Wild Thornberrys, Pedestrian, The Huntress, Batman Beyond, 3 episodes in
Right.
2000, Walker, Texas Ranger, another great one,
That
Disappearing
was a
Acts,
great, that was a terrific experience.
Walker Tech. Yeah, what was that
Yeah.
great, huh? So
Yeah. I
you're
mean,
Sergeant
I got,
Vincent Rossetti.
yeah, I get there and Chuck Norris comes up to me and he goes, Peter, I really, really love your work. Just let me know if there's anything you want to do, if you want to change a line or anything you want to do, just let me know. And I went, geez, thanks, Chuck. That's very nice of you. So right away I said to him, okay, look, you guys all do martial arts, right? I'm trained in martial arts. I said, but this character comes from New York. He's a cop from New York. I said, how about my fighting is all street fighting, right? The stunt coordinator went, oh, thank God, because he got to do something different from martial arts. And I had so much fun, man, wrapping hoses around guys' names, just wonderful. And I got to be good friends with Clarence Gilliard, rest in peace. And we went to a couple high school football games there down in Dallas, and it was great. It was just a wonderful experience that at that time in my career, agents and managers like, well, we don't know if we want you doing this because it's this. And I mean, it was one of the most popular shows on TV, but it was considered a little schlocky, And I went, and my wife and I are friends with Ellen Burstyn, and Jeanette and I are also in the Actors Studio in New York. And Ellen was here around for Thanksgiving dinner, right around the time I got offered this Walker. And I said to Ellen, I said, they're offering me this thing, and my agents and my managers are not sure, blah, blah, blah. She looked at me, she goes, do you like the character? I said, yeah, I really like the character. She goes, it's about the work.
How cool is that, huh?
Yeah,
For her to
yeah,
say that? What a
yeah,
and she was, of course, she's a prolific, beloved
yeah,
individual in the industry as well,
yeah,
Ellen Burstyn. Wow.
yeah,
That's incredible. And, in addition to that, folks, as we mentioned, Family Law, Sheena, ER in 2001, The Fugitive, and Freaky Links, Sex and the City, Crossing Jordan, Ordinary Summer, Leap Years, Monk, Providence. I remember
yeah,
Providence too. That was in
yeah,
2002. NCIS, The Last
yeah,
Ride, Man in
yeah,
the Mirror, The Michael Jackson Story,
yeah,
2004, American Dreams, Jag, Inside Out, Eyes, Justice League Unlimited. He was in all of these, folks. Homecoming, Jesus, Mary and Joey, Teen Titans, CSI New York in 2005. Ghost Whisperer, All In, Las Vegas, Gold Fever, Conviction, El Cortez, The Prince of the Pauper movie, another great one. That's in 2007. And you were a stunt coordinator on that.
yeah. I helped with stunts as well. Yeah.
Is that something you like to do?
I love it. I love doing stunts. I'm getting a little old for it now. I love doing them on SWAT. It was great to be able to. I mean, I had to train for a whole week for this one scene um, where I, had a fight across this, upper level of an office building, and then running, and jumping, and rolling. I mean, that's what anybody who wanted to be an actor as a kid. That's what you want to do. You want to play cops and robbers and cowboys, and ride horses and roll around and do that stuff. So it was great. I love doing my stunts because it's more screen time for me too. You know,
Exactly right. Desperate Housewives, of course, he was on that. Boston Legal with good
yeah,
old William Shatner and
yep,
so many incredible ones. Everybody Hates Chris and 24 and Chuck and Cold Case and The House That Jack Built, The
yep,
Mentalist, Batman, The
yep.
Brave and the Bold, In Plain Sight, Tramps and Ramblers. I mean, The Glades, Skunk
Everybody hates
Castle.
Chris, and on Everybody Hates Chris, I got to do something again that nobody gets to do. I played two characters, and we did a split screen like the old Patty Duke show.
Yes, Coach
I got to
Brantley and
play.
Janitor.
Yeah, yeah, and there was a scene where they split the screen, and I'm talking to myself to two different characters.
What's
It
that
was
like
great.
doing that?
It wasn't so bad because it's so funny that Ali Leroy, who created the show, he's a pretty prolific writer. He when when he conceived of this scene, he came in, and this whole takes place in New York, where Chris Rock grew up. So the janitor and the wrestling coach, they're cousins, and so Ali said, he brings me in. He goes, So what are you going to do? I go, what do you mean? He says, well, how are you going to make these guys different? I said, okay, one's Pesci and one's De Niro. He goes, good. That's all I wanted to hear. So that's the way I played it, you know?
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Just to play both. A
yeah,
lot of people always wonder, how do you do it? How do you remember to, but you got
yeah.
the crew there
Well,
guiding you
yeah,
along. But
crew's there and somebody's standing in, it's good, and you know what you did, so it's great.
exactly. Ghost phone calls from the dead coming and going. Harry's Law, The Big Bang Theory, CSI Crime Scene Investigation. A couple episodes on that as well. Sons of
Yeah,
Anarchy,
yeah,
Blue Bloods, West End. And this is just a few, folks. Two Broke
yeah,
Girls, of course, that was popular on
yeah,
CBS, as
yeah,
well as
yeah.
Murder in the First. The X's, How to Get Away with Murder on ABC. Battle Creek,
Right,
Batman versus Robin, Coming Nowhere, Adopted, Desperate Money, Elementary, another great series on
yeah,
CBS, and AEG Live Studio Actors on Actors. That's a great thing to be a part of.
yeah,
Twisted Twin, Hot Topic,
yeah,
Celeb TV Unscripted After Dark, playing himself, The
yeah,
Last Champion, our almost completely true story. When you look at all of this, as I mentioned, This Is Us, Being the Ricardo, Station 19, SWAT, Black Caesar. Uh, do you ever say, "Wow, I've done a few things here"?
I don't usually look at it, so you know what I mean? But I do know that, I mark my career by the ones that I've done well enough or been blessed enough to have a recurring character or a lead. Those are the things that I mark my career for. The other stuff is just, it's an extra bonus to be able to play, a different character. Um, but yeah, I mean, even something as recent as Station 19, the character was an important character. It was an offer. I still have to audition, but this was an offer. Um, and I to be able to sit in there and not have to worry about anything except being present in the moment is wonderful. It's wonderful. You don't have to worry about whether you're going to get fired or whatever. They offer you the job,
Mhm.
and it's a character that lasts. And those are the things that
Right.
you want to do. You want to create those moments.
Absolutely. We mentioned when they were guests on the show, Jerry Sroka, Marriott Hartley, and Peter McNichol, everybody, and you were with us too. And a more recent project, Our Love Story,
Yeah,
really the love story of Jerry and Marriott Hartley in this beautiful way that they did it. What was it like
yeah.
being a part of that?
Well, as soon as Jerry came up to me in a restaurant and said, he just happened to see me. He goes, "Hey, we're doing this thing. Would you be interested?" I said, "Sure." And I know Jerry just from being around. And actually, I was having dinner with an actor by the name of William Thomas Jr., who's gone now too. He was my son's godfather, and Bill did Godspell with Jerry Soroka, the original Godspell. And so I was having dinner with Bill, and Jerry comes by and he says hi to Bill, and he looks at me. He goes, "What are you doing? What are you?" I go, "It's my son's Godfather." So he said, you want to play with us?" I said, "Sure," and so he just put me into one of the characters, and we did it, and we had great fun, and he's since there's one thing that I did in that film that he keeps telling me about that he loves, and it's just a look. It's just a look. When you get somebody like Jerry or Mariette, I mean, what a historic career, uh, saying to you, "You know what? That one look is my favorite thing in the whole film." I went, "Come on." They go, "No, it really is." So, you know, it's not that we do it for reinforcement, but it sure is nice to get that from somebody who's so accomplished, and so yeah, such an icon, like Mariette.
Marriott Hartley, right? A beautiful story. If folks haven't
Yeah,
had a chance to see it, do look for it. It's very touching. And Marriott Hartley and Jerry and Peter and several other great folks that from television and film were guests on our show. That's archived
yeah,
as well. How do you've taken on some roles where it's really deep, it's very intense, it's tough stuff, it's reality. How do you
yeah,
separate the character for you, and how do you prepare? What is sort of part of your way that you're able to still be Peter, but then take on this character, but then be able to go home and unplug from the intensity of these amazing characters you've played?
I, there's very few times that I've had a problem leaving the character on the set. There's been a couple, but if I give it all away on the film or on the set, it's almost an exorcism. It's almost like I'm happy to be out of it now that I've given it. I'm happy to go home and have a martini and hug my wife. Yeah, I don't, and I've never had an intense character like that as a regular role. The regular roles I've had were the lawyers and all the other stuff. But there are moments when when it does affect you, and I got when I did Civil Wars. I mean, I had three little boys at home. When I did Cop Rock, like a bad cop, or the killers that I played in the movies with Victoria Principal, and I mean, those were away. So when I came home, they were exercised. But um, I had no trouble. Maybe it's because I have no training. I really don't have any training, except for that improvisation stuff. So that I wouldn't call myself a method actor or anything like that, even though both Jeanette and I are in the studio. Um, I think I see it as my job. You know, I give everything to my job, and I come home like my father did when he was, when he was a brick mason or slopping block together or paving a driveway. He gave it all out during the day, and he came home. You know,
Exactly right. Did they get a chance to see your success, the family?
they did. They did. They were around. My father and mother only died about 5 years ago, about 4 weeks apart, actually, and. And they saw everything. They never got it. They didn't understand it. I remember when I got done with the pilot for Cop Rock, it was my oldest son, Sonny. It was his first birthday party. My parents were out here, and my father. I got done 3 o'clock in the morning. I got up at 6 to start preparing for the party. My father came into the kitchen. He goes, "So you're out of work now, right? You need money?" I go, "No, no, I'm not out of work. In July, I go back. I do the series. I'm okay, Pop. But they never really quite got it. I mean, they loved it. They loved the fact that they could see me on television. They they were a little miffed about the naked scenes and in Sex and the City and in Tales from the Crypt and whatever else. But that's fine.
I think there's something about that, the generation, the time period as well, because some of those sentences my father has said over the years to me as well. He grew up in New York City
Yeah,
in Astoria, 2 blocks from Tony Bennett, and knew Tony, growing up and
yeah,
all. I would say things, even now to where you would be,
yeah,
if anybody ever gives you any trouble or if you need $20 or your room will always be here for you.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah,
there's something about that that just it's
yeah.
just the way that the way the time period it's beautiful to hear that. And probably
Yeah, I
I know.
waited. I waited. I waited till my parents went to Florida before I told them I was leaving my MBA behind and
Yeah.
all those years
So they
of
were
schooling.
there's
I was going to try
1,200
acting.
miles between
It's
you.
going to try it. Yeah. So
He would have sent you to your room.
yeah, exactly.
Kiddo, he would have said, "Hey, look, kiddo."
Yeah.
Those old
Here's your shovel. Here's your
Here's
shovel. This is what you're
that's
going to be
it.
doing.
Come on, and the car needs to be washed, and you forgot to mow the lawn. Get out there. That is funny.
Yeah.
Again, so many things have been in. This was, of course, on ABC, television, film, stage, all of it. With the MBA and being in marketing and advertising, did you ever think that the career would be in the way that it is and that it would have taken you to so many different places in an iconic way, and I know you're very humble about it, but you are omnipresent in all these things and people have been commenting throughout the show and we welcome everybody. But
Yeah.
oh, I remember him in this and I forgot Peter was in that. It isn't, it's a cool thing, right? Because it wasn't something you started out to do,
No,
but you
no,
got
there's
noticed, you got
yeah,
opportunities, seize them,
yeah,
make the best of it, still in the
yeah,
game
yeah,
wholeheartedly. What is that
yeah.
feeling like when you look at it all?
Well, like you said before, sometimes I need to look at my resume to really see what I've done because it's kind of all a blur. It was my job, and that's why I try to tell some of my buddies from back home. I go, no, I know I'm lucky, but really it's a job. I mean, it's what I did so I could pay for my kids' college, and I love doing it, and I'm very lucky to be doing something like that. But and most people don't get to do what I've done. So, but I never had expectations for it. I mean, if there was ever a moment of expectation, I was always disappointed. So right early on, in fact, I was back at Boonton High School last fall, and one of the kids said to me, "What do you think? What's your counsel for life?" And I go, "Oh man, you're asking the son of a stonemason." Uh, I said, "All right, here's something I think is important." I said, "Have goals, but not expectations. Expectations get you in trouble because even if your expectations are met, they're never met in the way that you expected them. And you're never really totally happy. So have goals, pursue your goals, go for them, always continue to pursue dreams and goals, but don't have any expectations about the results."
You couldn't have said anything better because that is so true. The expectations sometimes in anything we do, in these careers we're in, or just anything that anybody does, sometimes get in the way. And you're
Yeah,
striving so much to meet the expectations that you
right,
put on yourself, you don't get a chance to really enjoy the
right,
ride. So just
right,
let it go and let it
right.
shine. You would say
Yeah,
it to the hard hat guy.
yep.
You'd say it
One
to
of my
this
first
guy.
headshots. These are my first
Is
headshots.
this cool stuff, folks? Oh, yeah, and of course, we showed this earlier. That's
Yeah,
a great shot.
yeah,
All these great shots of memories and of
yeah,
good times, and
yeah,
that's another great one. People, of course, have
yeah.
seen that face a lot. And here's another. Look at this one.
President of student government high school at the student meeting. Holy cow! Somebody grabbed that out of my yearbook.
I do the research. I tell you.
Wow,
Um,
wow.
What would and these are life lessons that as much as we've been talking about, your career
Yeah,
and the shows that people remember and everything else, these are really life lessons for anybody coming up the ranks that, see a Peter and they want to do something similar. What would you say to them? A number of people who have come through, well, we've had a lot of people who've been doing it many, many years like you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'll say to them, what was the big moment? What was the big they're like, "I'm still waiting for it. I've done this 50 years. I'm still waiting for my big."
yeah.
So
I
you'll
mean,
hear that.
sure. I
But
would
they
say
also,
that too.
you know what they'd also say? Look, if you want to be an actor or go into these kinds of industries, but the other 50%, you talk about the 50% of carrying
Yeah,
down the family legacy. If the
yeah.
other 50% is you want to be an accountant, go be the accountant because you got to be 100% in these industries.
So my take is completely different from that. My wife took when she was coming up in Santa Barbara, she took acting classes from a very popular leading man of the late 50s. This is crazy. I must be getting tired. Um, anyway,
You want to phone a
he
friend?
no, yeah, that's a good idea. But he said something to her and the class. He said, "If you want to be an actor, find something else that you like to do in life and that you're good at, because you may end up doing more of that than acting." And I had already done that. I was in marketing and advertising, and it's what I wanted to do. And I could have gone back at any moment. I was insulated. It was great. Like I said before, I didn't have to study any characters. I lived like those characters, and I was insulated. I wanted everything as bad, but I didn't need it because if it's true that what we do requires an open instrument. How open can you be if you have to pay your rent or food, or anything else? So I told my sons, if you want to do anything in our business, go to college, find something else you like to do as much, so you have that, yeah, you've got to put 100% into it. But you can't live, on your efforts to be an actor. You have to have something to support you. Uh, Hopefully, it's something that you like. You know, but that was great. I mean, it was great, and it was great advice, and I lived it. Bradford Dillman. Brad Dillman
Right,
was my
Dillman.
wife's. He played St. Francis of Assisi. He was in Bus Stop with Marilyn Monroe. He great actor, and what a great guy. I met him a couple times. Um, but yeah, and he ended up on Falcon Crest too. He was
Crest, yeah.
on Falcon Crest. But he was like leading man of the late 50s, early 60s.
Is there anything
Married
you
to the
haven't
first
done that?
super.
Oh, what were you
He
saying?
married the first supermodel,
Oh,
Susie
really?
Parker.
Oh,
Susie Parker was her
wow.
name. Yeah, yeah,
Anything
yeah.
you haven't done of all these things you've done that we've talked a little bit about here? And there's much more, folks, that we just literally scratched the surface. But anything that's out there that you're like, I still want to do that, or this role or this thing, because you're also a writer and
Yeah.
producer as well, as much as you are, the
Well,
actor. You're
that's something I'd like to do right now. I finished the play after 30 years. If I put the time together, it probably took me 2 years. But I gave it over to the Actors Studio in New York, and we did do a reading of it here in LA at the Actors Studio here. Um, but I wanted to get it to New York because it's more of a New York East Coast piece, and the people that read it really, really liked it. I would love to see my play up someplace on Broadway. I don't care where, but I'd love to see that done. I'd like to write another one, but I've written a couple of scripts that almost television shows that were one that was sold in 2003 about a friend of mine's life who's now gone. He was the first Black investigator in the Georgia Bureau of Investigation back in the 70s and the early 80s, and the most bizarre and bittersweet life that you can imagine. His cases were just phenomenal. Um, we sold that in 2003, but it went away. We sold it to WB. There was an announcement in the trades and everything. So yeah, I mean, I would like to shift into that, or write a movie or do something. Right now with two grandkids and a big ass house that I can't afford to pay somebody else to work on, I'm pretty busy.
it doesn't fall the apple too far from the tree with your father's background. You're probably doing
Exactly.
all the work around there as much as you can, right?
Exactly. I built a whole slate patio right outside my office here years ago, and I looked up my music on, and I was, cutting the slate and fitting the slate and jointing it, and I looked up. My wife's there. She's laughing at me, and I go, if I could make as much doing this as I can acting, I would do this. you know.
There's
So
always something. Well, with
yeah.
that, what would the Peter of today say to this young lad who was wide-eyed and curious?
Uh, Tell the truth. Tell the truth. It's better that way. No matter what you have to take for it. I especially with the whole Catholic thing.
The whole thing, right? Exactly.
Yeah. No, you know what? I would say the same thing. I said to my boys. You can, you tell the truth, and you take what comes with it. I said, because I told my boys early on. I said, listen, we're Onoratis. We get caught, so don't lie. you know, that's the way it is. you know,
That's the way it is.
yeah.
Really cool catching up with you, Peter. You're really
Thank you.
a great guy, class act. You're very humble about it. One of the great things is you haven't lost that East Coast authenticity or straight shooter. And,
Thanks.
you just really put your heart and soul into everything you do, as evidenced by the laundry list of things you've been a part of that continue to grow. And I wish you nothing but continued success, my friend. And we're going to keep the porch light on for you, as I always say to all the guests. You're welcome
Okay.
back here anytime, even if you have just
Thanks.
something quick you want to say, a hello, or there's something you're excited about sharing, or whatever it may be.
Okay, great.
We're going to keep that light on for you. And I really hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have
I
with you,
did.
Pete.
I did. It was wonderful. Thanks so much.
All right. We'll send the, how do you want the pizza and bagels sent from the East Coast? FedEx or?
No, send them unbaked so I can throw them in and I'll bake them fresh myself.
I was going to say, do you like to cook? Do you make a sauce and all?
I don't want, you know what? My boys all cook. My wife cooks. I'm the pain in the ass creative cook. I'll say, why don't you put a little of this in it or put a little of that in it? And whatever I say usually turns out really well until my wife or my old girlfriend would say, can I just do it by the recipe for once? Yeah,
You learned your lesson, Peter.
yeah, I did.
just
Yeah,
just arrive at the table with the fork and the knife and the spoon and just eat it
that's it.
and
That's
enjoy
it.
it. Want to let everybody, folks, know we've been showing this during the course of the show too. There is his website, and you can see clips of his work, some really cool videos throughout the years, and his gallery and bio, and a whole host of cool things. He's out there doing his thing. Peter, an honor and a pleasure to have you with us here on the Jim Masters Show. Spread the word about our show. If you know other folks you think
I
would
will,
like
Jim.
to be a part of our show,
Okay.
everybody tells everybody, and you
Yeah.
are, again, very welcome to be back with us again. And thanks for the generosity of time, my friend. It was terrific.
Thanks, Jim. I had a great time.
I did as well. You be well. You take care, and blessings to the family, okay?
All right. Ciao.
Ciao. Take care now. Peter Onorati joining us here from LA, from Tinseltown, from Hollywood, by way originally of New Jersey, USA. What a great guy, right? We covered so much ground in the time that we've had. And again, he is somebody that you've seen for so many years on your screen, on film, on television, stage work as well, and voiceover work, animated characters, just really amazing. I love his stories too. His stories are so real, so authentic. Thanks to everybody for all these wonderful comments coming at you live at the time of this broadcast right now. Hey, you can also follow us on our social media as well, Instagram, Facebook, and X at Jim Masters TV. And if you liked this episode and maybe you want to see it again or share it, be sure and share this episode from our YouTube channel right to your social media and elsewhere. And our YouTube channel, of course, is Jim Masters TV. That's where all these great episodes are. Many episodes, many episodes, and always a true pleasure. And to have all of you here sharing with us as well. And if this is something that you'd like to see again, well, you can, because we archive all of our episodes on the YouTube channel. And so you have an opportunity to see all these episodes again. And if you joined us late, don't fret, because all the episodes are there. Matter of fact, while you're here, don't forget to give this episode and all the ones you love, give us a nice hearty thumbs up like. We love that. It actually lets us know you're enjoying what we're doing here at the Jim Masters Show. Share the episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. It doesn't cost anything to do that. You just click the subscribe button, the red or black subscribe button right there on the screen. And you're a part of the JMS family, the Jim Masters Show family. And also leave a comment below. What are some of your favorite Peter Onorati performances, TV shows, films, all kinds of things? Let us know. We love to hear from you. And thanks to everybody who has been leaving comments on the episodes on our channel. We really, really appreciate that. We thank you for your time. This is your host, Jim Masters, thanking you for your time this time. Till next time, come see us again. We love having you here. And what a terrific conversation again. We really, truly thank our very special guest, Peter Onorati, for joining us here on the show. And we always thank you for joining us. It's really an honor to have you here. And there he is. What a great guy. A class act. I love the photo in the middle there where he's leaning back with his glass and the cigar. Some terrific conversation. And we appreciate all of you. Thank you for all these chat room comments coming in here. I see everybody, Kathleen and Jean and everybody, Merlin. A lot of new folks too, PJ being here as well. And nice to have you here. So, all right. So we thank Peter. We thank you. I think we've taken care of all of it. Come see us again. We have so many great guests coming up here on our Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series, and we love having you here. This is your host, Jim Masters. Take care of one another. Don't forget to love one another, and don't forget to do the very same for yourself. Really important to do that. We'll be right here waiting for you in Levity Hall for the next episode of the Jim Masters Show. Till then, be well, and thanks for joining us. And cheers.